today and probably over the next couple days I'll be mounting this backhoe. It's a 3-point backhoe to this tractor. Yeah, it's a 3-point subframe style, so it doesn't hang off of the links as such. So there's the upper link and the 2 lower links. This actually uses a subframe, and it essentially makes the tractor, the front of that frame grabs that mount where that pin is, where that hole is. So that's the front of the subframe. The midsection of the subframe essentially grabs that point right there. That pin will come out, the arm comes off, and then there are these brackets that attach to those pins. So it's and then the front of it, of course, the front of the subframe attaches to the backhoe in this area. I think it's like 9 bolts or something. So it's a much more rigid style than the kind that just kind of hang off the back. This is quite heavy. It's probably 1,000 pounds or more, or it's in that ballpark. I think the container is probably more than 1,000 pounds, like in the pallet here right now. But anyway, it should be pretty straightforward. Just got to pull all these links off, which is pretty simple. Pull the shroud here, pull this for the PTO, just take this shroud off. And then the pump, the hydraulic pump, I think attaches to this bit here. So it should be pretty straightforward. It's pretty beefy. Like I said, the hydraulic pump it's got its own hydraulic pump there. And then it's got its own filter and its own tank. So it's great. It doesn't use any of the hydraulic system on the tractor. Pretty beefy cylinder, 15-inch bucket. It's pretty big, much bigger than I thought it would be. Honestly, I thought it'd be more like a trenching bucket. But it's pretty cool anyway, because I want to custom fabricate like a jackhammer mount as well, so I can hang a jackhammer off this when I need to do concrete stuff and fix pipes and blah, blah, blah. So that's down the road. That'll be another project. But controls are here. I should be able to just swivel, pivot the seat, just flip the seat around and access these controls. So it should work out pretty good. Okay, I'm just gonna pull the links off and we'll pick it up there. These cotter pins are used on the lower links. I already took them out, so you wouldn't have to suffer through that. I thought they were aluminum, but they're steel. I don't know, just assumed because of the finish it was aluminum, but they're ferrous. Aluminum. Okay, so let's pull this out. One down here. Pull this guy out. If I've got the strength, I'm not sure. Okay. I'm going to hold this up a little bit to get that out. Okay, that link's off. As I said, the shroud will have to come off, so I think I have a zip tie in here. I'll have to pull that off. This is just a 50 amp. It's a discrete 50 amp circuit for the winch and stuff like that. I just put one of these power poles on it. Okay. Just more of the same on the side. Let's do this guy. Okay, that's the right side. So I think there's a triangular looking bracket with a through hole at the top of the triangle that slides over that, and that's captured by the pin. And at the base of that bracket, there's a couple of holes that grab some. There's a couple of threaded holes that you can attach. You can screw into the subframe, so it's should be much more rigid than the other style. It just hangs off the back, and it will also transmit. Probably does a much better job of distributing the energy and pushing it forward into the frame, which is good, rather than just concentrating it all back here. This upper link has to come off as well. So I'm just going to disconnect it from this bracket, let it fall down. It can rest on the shroud. As you can see, it's not the first time these two have met. So this shroud might come off with just these two upper bolts right there. I'll find out in a second. Yeah, looks like it's just the two bolts. All right, getting closer. This mounting plate for the drawbar off. There's just these 4 nuts here, and then there's 2 bolts in the bottom. I should be able to walk this off. And this pin actually stays. It stays in. There's just the brackets that'll get attached onto these pins. This rod was pretty loose. It doesn't seem like it's hogged out or there's any damage to it, but right here there's essentially a set screw that drives into the rod, which is drilled, so the set screw is captured, which prevents it from rotating. So I just took this mostly out. I couldn't take it all the way out because it hits these mounting tabs. But anyway, I tighten the set screw, it doesn't rotate, and then I use some medium strength, like a blue Loctite kind of fastener. So it's got Loctite, the nuts locked down, so this shouldn't move anywhere. I'm going to grease this rod anyway, so when these mounts are on here, there'll be a little bit of grease. This is a subframe assembly that will slide under the tractor. This portion is where the backhoe will mount. And then this slotted section will be grabbed by the triangular brackets in the rear. And then these holes are for the pins up front. And this is the brackets I'm referring to. I just put a little bit of grease on there and keep stuff from galling, but both sides are on. So I'm just going to use the dolly and just save my back a little bit here. Just should make it easier to position under there. It's pretty heavy. It's heavier than it looks. So the subframe has a bit of a taper up front from the inside to the inside. It's just sort of tapered inward, so it won't fit into the slots. There's essentially this other metal that sits on either side. And because of this taper, it won't fit into those slots. So I'm just going to have some stock here, aluminum stock. I'm just going to cut a piece off and try and wedge it in the bottle jack between the frame and see if I can open it up a little bit, get it to seat on the frame, put the pins through it, and then I'll take the bottle jack off. Hopefully it'll have enough force where it'll stay in place and you know, won't want to just fall out. So I'll cut that up and see if it works. The ball jack's in place and it seems to be holding okay. I'll see if it lines up now. Using this bottle jack to spread this into the frame worked out really well because it needed to be moved quite a bit. I don't know, half an inch, 3/4 an inch, whatever it is. But taking this off will be, and trying to put it back on later, because as a separate project, I want to build a frame like casters that'll just roll up as 1 or 2 pieces under this entire assembly, so I can just push the backhoe off. But I'm going to have to weld, so I marked where the frame ends on the tractor frame. So anywhere in here, I think I'm going to tack a piece of steel, maybe something rectangular around whatever I have. I'm not going to put a lot of heat in it, just tack something in there to keep this distance consistent. I don't want to put a lot of heat into it and have it twist, because the pins go in easily. So this alignment is really good. So anyway, I'm just going to tack a piece of material in here to just keep this at this dimension, at this width. That way it slides in easily into the frame. I found some rectangular stock I had. It's 1/8 wall. I think it's 2 inch by 1.5 inches, something like that. So I've welded into the front section here. That's the piece that's going across. So it's welded in place. It's the pins fit, and it worked out pretty well. It's almost dead center on these mounts on both sides, so it worked out really well. The next thing to tackle is going to be in the rear. I don't like this setup with the slot and just these washers, which are inevitably going to collapse, curve, get pulled in, and then this edge will get rounded, most likely. Well, no, that's pretty solid. But it'll mess this whole edge up, and the bolts as well. So I'm just going to use some 1/8 inch plate, just drill on the centers, same centers as the bracket, and then put that on this side, so this doesn't get all chewed up in here. So these are the brackets I came up with. Should bolt right up, and we'll put them on as soon as the paint streaks have finished drying. The subframe is fully mounted. Just how the brackets look. Preparation of mounting the backhoe. Let's get all these bolts out. Plan's going to be use the cherry picker to pick up the backhoe, and then I can just place it on the subframe. But first I got to get this shipping crate out of here. I need the space to get the cherry picker behind this, to get it behind the backhoe. So I'm going to get this out of here and then get set up. So this is how I grabbed it. I grabbed these pins underneath all the hoses so they can't be pinched. And I put the outriggers on the dollies just to keep a lot of slack in their cables. Same thing over here. The straps are under the hoses so they're safe. And then up here, staying away from the cylinder. Backhoe assembly is off the tray now. I've just got it blocked in on dollies, so I can come up from the front. What I want to do is use the cherry picker to just walk it up from the front, and then pick it up, you know, at the same place. And then at that point, once it's just on the cherry picker, I should be able to move it easily and precisely and put it, you know, right over the subframe. Pump's mounted. I'm going to bring the backhoe in now. I'm going to mount it on the frame, and we'll go from there. The bolts are all in place. 3 here, 3 there, 3 under here. The backhoe mounted to the frame. I just need to mount the outriggers on both sides, and also mount the hydraulic tank, which goes to that tab right there, and then the far one over there. The tank essentially lays across the back. The backhoe installation is complete. Went pretty well, all things considered. I think if you're going to try and install this by yourself like I did, then you probably want a crane or a cherry picker, bunch of blocks, car jack, 4 or 6 dollies. It'll really help. I do need to add more hydraulic fluid. Need to top it off, but worked great, all things considered. I think the controls are a bit touchy, but I just need to get used to that. And yeah, I'm looking forward to using it. So if you have any comments, please put them in. And if you have any ideas on how to make a dolly assembly to go under this, I'd be really interested in reading your comments. I want to come up with something that just slides underneath and sort of picks up the subframe and the outriggers and the bucket, and we'll just sort of lift it, or rather support it, so it can just roll away from underneath, because there's just the 2 pins in the front, and I think when those 4 nuts come off, 2 on each side, it's pretty much good to go. Oh, the pump has to come off, so it's not very complicated. I think it's like, 10 bolts, and yeah, it'll come off. So anyway, it'll make it much easier to put on and off, and summer's coming up too, so I'll need to put the brush hog and other stuff on just to mow the property. So yeah, thanks for watching.